You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where it's our pleasure to show up with you each and every week and to serve you and to bring you inspiring, thought-provoking, and purposeful content. This week, I want to talk about something that's, I think it's pretty neat, man. It's something I've been stumbling across the last couple of years and really putting a lot of time into thinking and energy towards, and that is staying curious. And I want to start off the episode with a little story of a guy Andrea and I met in our travels that really lived that, and really, I think our paths crossed so that he could teach me a little bit about that. But before we share this story, and before we dive deep into staying curious, I want to remind you or ask you to please like, subscribe, share the podcast on whatever app you're listening to. We're on all the major apps around the world. And join us on Patreon if you're interested in contributing financially, where we have memberships each month from as little as $2, and all that money goes back to helping us continue to reach our goal of being one of the most impactful podcasts in the world. So let's start this episode staying curious. And I want to start it with a story. So many of you know Andrea and I travel pretty much full time now, living out of an Airstream travel trailer and going all around the United States. We've put it in storage and went internationally to Costa Rica for a month. But we just love traveling, and we love the people we're meeting and stuff. And so I want to tell you a story of a gentleman we met in a small town called Naco, Arizona, which is split by the border. So half the town's in the United States and half is in Mexico. And it's a cute little town, just a couple thousand people. And Andrea and I actually ended up in a campground down there because there was a record cold front this past winter moving into Arizona, and we needed to have more power to keep the heater running and stuff. So we booked reservations on Super Bowl Sunday and showed up at this little tiny campground in town. And the camp host was this guy in his mid-70s from Boston. And as he checked us in, and we got to talking a little bit about our stories and how we ended up down there, he was sharing with us that he started traveling full-time after he retired from a life in the Northeast where he'd been his whole life, and wanted to chase better weather and just get out west where there's open spaces and bigger skies, and it stays a little warmer in the winter. So I asked him, I was like, well, are you going to get ready to move then? Because it's supposed to get cold down here too. Like, we're going to be below freezing. Like, what are you going to do? And it was funny. He looked at me and told me, he's like, no, I got to wait till school's over. And I started thinking, okay, real quick, just processing the numbers in my head. Okay, 70's probably a grandpa. Maybe he has family down here and the kids are in school and he helps maybe watch after them while the parents work. Or, maybe he's a school bus driver. Maybe to make ends meet in retirement, he picks up odd jobs around here and he's working for the school district. So curious, I was like, oh, what you got to wait for school for? Like, what's the deal with school? And he looked at me and said, well, when I came out west, I started seeing the sky differently than I had seen it in Boston my whole life, with the buildings and the pollution and the clouds coming in off the ocean. We don't get a lot of clear skies, and there's so much light we can't see the stars as much. So he goes, I realized I came out here and I was looking up at the sky and I was seeing all these stars, but I didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't know anything about them. So I'm in school. And I looked at him and he goes, I just wanted to know more about what I was looking at. So I signed up for classes at the community college, so I can't leave no matter how cold it gets till school's over. And I thought, man, how freaking awesome is that? This guy's in his 70s taking classes at a community college simply to learn more about the sky he's looking at, something that he had never seen in the first 70 years of his life. He wanted more knowledge, more information. Not a, I've already known this, I already know that kind of attitude, but a curiosity for life. I started thinking, man, am I being curious enough in my life? What should I be doing more of or less of to learn? Right? One of the great things about being curious is it's okay to to put your beliefs or your thoughts or your opinions or your experiences aside to learn from somebody else's. It's a chance for you to see things new again. Right? And I was like, man, this guy in his 70s, that's what I want to be doing. I want to be curious about life. I want to learn things. And then I just started even thinking, I got curious about the fact that we even met. Here's this gentleman from Boston, spent his whole life in Boston. There's very little, talking more to him, there's very little intersecting points in our lives as far as career or families or travel. But here all of a sudden, the two of us meet in a small town on the border of Arizona at a record cold front, which drove us to a campground that we otherwise would never have been at. And I started thinking, wow, what if I get curious about everybody I meet? What if I get curious about the encounters I have in life? Those bad moments, those moments where I'm like, things aren't going right. What if instead of saying that, I go, wait a second, let me be curious. Why is this not working? Not only can I maybe fix something, but I can learn maybe a lesson. Maybe it's not working because I'm meant to be here to meet somebody else. So I started thinking, I got curious about, are there such things as chance encounters? When the people, places, and things enter my life, is it really for a reason? Is it to teach or to be taught, to listen, to speak, to give, or to take in those moments? And our lifestyle, for Andrew and I, where we're always moving, a day here, a week there, maybe a month in a specific place, the chances of us meeting other traveling folks who are moving as well, the fact of two of us in motion intersecting at a certain point and place and moment in time has to be meant to happen. Right? It has to be. What if we start approaching our lives like that, whether you're traveling like us or you're in a more conventional life and you're working, you got the house and you're doing all the things you're supposed to do? What if we get actually curious about the random, and I put quotes around that, people or circumstances that enter our life? What if we start to stop and go, wait a second, what am I supposed to learn here? Let me learn something from this person. If we never question, listen, ask, how will we ever know what we could have learned, shared, and created in those moments? Right? Being curious to different ideas, different people's points of view, different people's experience that you haven't had is a great way to learn. It's a great way to stay young, like my friend in his 70s still going to college. So I share this episode this week to ask you to remain curious and to challenge some of your fixed beliefs, especially if they're no longer serving you, especially if some of your beliefs are holding us where we're at and we want to be doing something different. We want more. One of the great ways to start creating momentum towards change is getting curious. Curious about, why don't I want to learn? Why won't I listen to somebody else's opinion? Why won't? Or curious about, wait, how come I still believe this? How come I have this view? Is this my view or is this somebody else's view that was just given down to me? Because curiosity is a great way to stay young. Just like puppies and grandkids and people that are looking at things for the first time, they have just a different energy about them because they don't have any experience with it. It's all brand new. I still believe, tempered maybe a little bit because of life, not everything's roses, but I still believe that if we got curious about the people in our lives, the situations in our lives, we would have so much more joy. We would have so much more enriching relationships because we're actually curious to learn from them. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, subscribe, share, and go out this week and be curious and let us know how curiosity is working for you. Thank you again for being here. It's always a pleasure to serve you. We'll talk to you next week.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.